Shame is a prison as cruel as a grave. Shame is a robber, and he's come to take my name. Oh, love is my redeemer, lifting me up from the ground. Love is the power when my freedom song is found. There ain't no grave gonna hold my body down. There ain't no grave gonna hold my body down. When I hear that trumpet sound, I'm gonna rise up out of the ground. There ain't no grave gonna hold my body down. Smooth and velvet tongue, and fear is a tyrant. He's always telling me to run. Oh, love is a resurrection, and love is a trumpet sound. Oh, love is my weapon. I'm gonna take my giants down. There ain't no grave gonna hold my body down. There ain't no grave gonna hold my body down. When I hear that trumpet sound, I'm gonna rise up out of the ground. Oh, there walked out of the grave I'm walking to, if you walked out of the grave I'm walking to, yes, if you walked out of the grave I'm walking to, if you walked out of the grave I'm walking to, yeah, if you walked out of the grave I'm walking to, yeah, if you walked out of the grave I'm walking to, yeah, if you walked out of the grave I'm walking to, yeah, if you walked out of the grave I'm walking to, yeah, if you walked out of the grave I'm walking to, yeah, if you walked out of the grave I'm walking to, if you walked out of the grave I'm walking to, yeah, if you walked out of the grave I'm walking to, there ain't no
Let's give those girls a hand. Aren't they awesome? Come on. Good morning. Happy Easter. It's great to see you. Let's say hello to someone around you. Say Happy Easter, and we'll sing together.
Without your goodness, I would be desperate. Without your love, slave to the darkness. If it wasn't for the cross, you have won me with your kindness. Chased me down when I was lost. Where would I be if it wasn't for the cross? Oh, hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. I was a prisoner. Now I'm not. And with your blood you bought my freedom. Oh, hallelujah, for the cross. Oh, my shame was met with mercy. Now your mercy life you gave. Your body was broken, your love poured out. You bled and you died for me there on the cross. You breathed your last as you were crucified. You gave it all for me. Hallelujah, what a Savior. Hallelujah, what a friend. Hallelujah, King forever. We thank you for the cross. So they're in the ground. They're in the ground, sealed in the darkness. Life is led. The frame of the Father, Son, in agony, as he watches on the Son be sacrificed, and he gave it all for me. Hallelujah, what a Savior. Hallelujah, what a friend. Hallelujah, King forever. We thank you for the cross.
But on that day, it seemed as the darkest hour of islands fall, broke through and shook the ground, and as you rose, the light of all the world was magnified. As you rose in victory. Hallelujah, it is finished. Hallelujah, it is done. Hallelujah, King forever. We thank you for the cross. Hallelujah, it is finished. Hallelujah, it is done. Hallelujah, King forever. We thank you for the cross. We thank you for the
Though our sins are scarlet, you have made us white as snow. And though our sins are scarlet, you have made us white as snow.
The message is pretty clear this morning, right? There ain't no grave that could hold him. We're here because the tomb is empty, and we're glad that you're here to celebrate with us. It's been an incredible weekend here at the Avenue Church. This band has been here since 9 o'clock yesterday morning. Give it up for them. They're still going strong. Here I am in church, and I have a little bit of envy in my heart for the talents that these people share with us each and every week. But once again, we're glad that you're here. We're the Avenue Church. We strive to empower people to take their next step towards Christ. And so if you've been with us for a while, we believe God has something for you today. If you have never been here, you haven't been in church in 30 years, we're glad you're here. And we believe God has something for you today. There's a message waiting for you, and we're glad that you're here to participate with us. We're going to continue in worship through giving, and each and every week we ask owners here at the Avenue to sacrifice, to live generously, and to give of their finances, saying, I trust you, God, completely. If you're a guest with us today, we don't expect anything from you. If the buckets are coming by, as they come by, just pass those buckets to the end of the row, and somebody will pick them up. And so we're just, once again, we're glad that you're here. If this is your first time, welcome. We're excited about what God is doing in our lives, because He's alive. He's bringing new life. And we want to remember that today. We invite you to remember communion and remember Christ's body broken for you and His blood poured out so that we could have life. And so if it would be significant for you to take communion today, we invite you to do that at the left or the right of stage. Once again, glad you're here. Let's pray together as we continue to worship. God, we're just here for you. We're here to worship and to praise you for what you've done in our lives, God. God, through your Son, Jesus, we have new life. We have relationship with you. God, we have a purpose. And God, we just want to honor you and bless you today through our songs and through our giving, through just opening your word together as a community of believers. God, thank you for the significance of Easter and God, how it changed everything. It changed everything for our world. It changed everything for us individually. God, we want to be just attentive to what you have for us today. God, we look to you. You are our strength. You are our life. God, we just ask that you would show up in a special way. And God, we pray this all in the risen name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
The chasm that lay between us, how high the mountain I could not climb. In desperation, I turned to heaven and spoke your name into the night. Then through the darkness, your loving kindness tore through the shadows of my soul. The work is finished, the end is written. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Who could imagine so great a mercy? What heart could fathom such boundless grace? The God of ages stepped down from glory to wear my sin and bear my shame. The cross is spoken, I am forgiven, and the King of Kings calls me his the promise. Your very body began to breathe, and out of the silence, the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on me. Come on, that's why we're here today. We're gonna sing it out. The morning that sealed the promise, your very body, it began to break, and out of the silence, the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on me. I know Jesus, yours is the victory. Oh yeah, and hallelujah, praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living. Come on, hallelujah. Oh, hallelujah. Praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah. Death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. Oh, you are Jesus Christ, my living hope. Oh, Jesus Christ, my living hope. Y'all are awesome. Thank y'all for singing. Go ahead and have a seat.
I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for his sheep. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me. I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me will live and never die. Do you believe this?
Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? Welcome to the Avenue. So glad to have you all here for our worship times. We've had an incredible weekend. So many things have gone on. I want to thank those of you in the room, of course, that got a seat. Overflow, thank you for being out there and watching and staying with us and not leaving. Ennis, I see you're packed out, which is incredible. First time we've had 3 services over there for them, and just great to see that happening. Those of you online, thanks for the effort. No, I'm kidding. If you're online, you probably made the best decision. If you see our parking lot, you're probably the smartest people here. So we appreciate all of you joining us. We have been doing something throughout this time that we've had leading up to Easter for the people that come on a normal basis. We've been talking about the I am, what that means, because a lot of people, when we talk about Jesus, they want him to be everything except who he says he was. It's kind of amazing that we are all gathered here today and that we're gathered with millions of other followers all across the nation just because 2,000 years ago, a Jewish rabbi who never left a 200-mile radius of where he was born, he never wrote a book, he never started a company, he just talked until the day that he walked out of the grave alive. Because of that, not because the Bible tells us, but because those believers on Friday, when Jesus was taken away Thursday night and put on that cross, those believers, those people that followed him, we don't understand, but they all panicked. They all left. They were not standing outside the tomb counting down, waiting for Jesus to be resurrected. Even though he had said it many times that he was going to be handed over and on the 3rd day he was going to come back to life. They're like just most of us in the room. Dead people don't come back to life. And so nobody was expecting him to come back. And Friday they were in hiding. Saturday they were in hiding. They were depressed. They were shocked. They were hurt. They believed that Jesus was the Messiah. But they believed that he was going to set up an earthly kingdom. He was going to throw off the Roman oppressors. And they were all waiting for that day and excited. And then all of a sudden they took him away, led him away, crucified, dead, buried in a tomb. On Sunday morning, some women got up early to go prepare the body properly for burial because a couple of men had done it on Friday afternoon. And we all know the men didn't do it right. And so the women gathered that early that morning. As they walked up, they were the first to see that Jesus was alive. And Jesus appeared to one of the Marys and said, why do you look for the living among the dead? There he is, Jesus in the flesh, come back out of the grave. The women run to the disciples and they run into the room and they tell the disciples, we've seen Jesus, he's alive. And they're like, yeah, a little early in the day to be drinking. So they all take off running to the tomb and they find it empty. But you know what? They still don't believe. They just don't know what happened. They have no idea until Jesus appears to them. And those same men that cowered and hid and were afraid for their lives in a short period of time turned around and proclaimed that Jesus Christ was God and that he was salvation. And we saw a movement that took place in Jerusalem and spread out through the entire world that by 300 years later, it had conquered the Roman Empire without shedding a drop of blood except their own. These first witnesses are why we believe. Now, there's a lot of people in the room today that want to believe that Jesus is something else. There's a lot of people in our world today that want to say that Jesus was a good man, that Jesus was a moral person, that Jesus was spiritual. But I want you to know, and that's why we went through this series on I Am, all the way through the New Testament, every reading, every scripture you read, Jesus is claiming to be God. And I've had people tell me, no, Jesus never claimed to be God. That's because you don't understand the words he used. When he said, I am the light of the world, when he said, I am the bread of life, when he said, I am the living water, when he said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life, when he said, I'm the resurrection and the life, he's not saying he's like those things. He is calling on the name of God in the Old Testament, and he is letting them know, I am God. In fact, every time he went to Jerusalem, he got in trouble. Now, for those of you who don't know, most of Jesus' ministry was up in a place called Galilee, which was north. Up in Galilee, man, he was a rock star. They loved him. I mean, he fed 20,000 people with a fish sandwich. And you know how people are. You give them free food, they will follow you anywhere. This church goes nuts. We give a free t-shirt out. There's We have so many free t-shirts. It's crazy. People love free stuff. So up there, Jesus was a hero, and they gathered around him. But every time he went down into Jerusalem, he got in trouble because the religious leaders didn't want him there because there was rumors that he was the Messiah, that he was the Christ, and people were beginning to believe this, and he was attracting a crowd. And for those religious leaders, that was dangerous because if the Roman Empire looked down and saw a commotion, they'd send their soldiers in and they'd take away what they had. So they were not fond of Jesus. Right before the passage that we read today is a passage that talks about Jesus is in Jerusalem for an event, and the Pharisees, Sadducees, religious leaders are talking with him, and he begins to tell them who he is. And you see, it's clear to them he's claiming to be God. In fact, they pick up stones and they're gonna kill him. And they look at him and say, you need to change your mind. You need to stop blaspheming. You have claimed to be God. Jesus said nothing. So they tried to stone him, and Jesus got away, and him and his disciples went back north. So that's what's happened right before this story that we're gonna see today. And listen, I understand in the room today, I got a lot of different folks online and in us. You're from all kinds of places in your spiritual walk. There are people here that have been following Jesus for a long time, and you're a strong believer, and you love Easter. You just love the fact that we come together. Some of you are new followers, and a lot of this is new to you. Some of you, let's just be honest, you're hedging your bet. You're thinking, if there is a God, I want credit for being here on Easter 2019. So check that off my box. God, if there is a God, I was there, right? Some of you are here because your crazy family member drugged you. And then some of you, your coworker that's always reading the Bible, finally talked you into coming, and you're like, man, this is rough. I get it. But what I want to show you today, I'm not concerned about where you are in your spiritual path. I'm not concerned about why you're here. I have one thing that I want to happen today. I want you to meet Jesus right now in the present. I want you to see that he doesn't care about your past. He wants to untangle your past, and he wants to give you a future hope. He wants to give you an abundant life today. He wants to meet you in the present right now. And that's what we want to talk about. So I want you to see a story in chapter 11 of John. You can follow in your Bible or on your device, or if you don't have it, you can look up here and you'll see. This is a story of a man that was very close to Jesus. He lived in a place called Bethany, which was just outside of Jerusalem. And every time Jesus traveled down to Jerusalem, the disciples would stay with this family. Let me read. Now, a man named Lazarus was sick. He was from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. This Mary, whose brother Lazarus was now lay sick, was the same one who poured perfume on the Lord and wiped his feet with her hair. So the sisters sent word to Jesus, Lord, the one you love is sick. Now, understand the relationship they had with Jesus. Jesus spent a lot of time with his family. They loved him and he loved them. In fact, their brother was so sick that they become worried. So it was not an illness as normal. Lazarus was not an old man. And so the sisters watched him contract some kind of illness, and they got afraid for his life. It wasn't the flu or something he ate. He was deathly ill, and they began to see that this is dangerous. So they sent a runner to Galilee to tell Jesus, because you know what? They'd experienced Jesus in such a way. They had seen him make the lame walk. They'd seen him make the blind see. They'd seen him heal people, and they just thought, if Jesus hears that Lazarus is sick, he'll come down here, he'll heal him, he'll fix our problem. So they sent the runner. Now, we know the end of the story, many of us in the room, but they don't. So they sent a runner, and they're watching their brother get sicker and sicker and sicker. The runner gets to Jesus, and he tells him, Lord, the one you love is sick. When he heard this, Jesus said, the sickness will not end in death. No, it's for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it. Now, it tells us again, Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. Yet when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was for 2 more days. So I want you to put yourself in the shoes of Martha and Mary. They've seen this horrible sickness come over their brother. He is dying. In fact, he dies that very day. The runner is coming back, And they're looking for Jesus. Because if you've ever been around death, if you're in the medical profession or ever had to watch someone die, you know it is a horrifying experience. It is a terrible experience to watch someone die, especially a loved one, because the body gasps for breath at the end and then it begins to gurgle and it takes a long time. And you're just sitting there helpless. Now, Martha and Mary are looking out the window because Jesus can stop this. So they're waiting. The runner comes back. And they say, is Jesus behind you? And he says, he's not coming. He's not coming. What do you think they were going through? Later that evening, their brother dies. And they start preparing him for burial. They go through the funeral. They go through the wake. Jesus still hasn't shown up. This is somebody he loves. This is someone that is close to them. And they're going through the funeral procession and Jesus never shows up. They're looking for him, but he doesn't come back. He's not there for them. After that period's over, they lay him in a tomb, which is a cave with a rock over it. And they go into a 30-day mourning period in their home where they're not even supposed to leave except to go to the tomb. They're mourning their brother. They have lost someone very important to them. Back in the north, Jesus looks at his disciples and says, let's go back to Judea. Now his disciples look at him and go, but Rabbi, you know, just a short while ago, the Jews tried to stone you. And we're going to go back there? In other words, saying, are you sure that's a good idea? You remember we barely got out with our lives last time. Let's stay up here in the north where they like us. Let's stay up here in the north where we have a crowd coming and listening to the teaching. Let's stay out of Jerusalem. We get in a lot of trouble down there. The next sentence really doesn't make any sense unless you understand who Jesus is. Because Jesus has told his disciples, I am the light of the world. I am the light, not like a light. I am the light. Remember, he says, I am God. I am light. And so he answers them and says, are there not 12 hours of daylight? The man who walks by the day will not stumble, for he sees with this world's light himself. It is when he walks by night that he stumbles. So this passage, if you read it and don't understand that Jesus has already explained that he is light, he's saying, hey, you're going with me. You're going to be fine. I got this covered. And so he's explaining. It says after he said this, he went on to tell them, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I'm going to go there to wake him up. Now remember, the disciples do not want to go down there. And they're like, hey, Jesus, if he's sleeping, you know, that's good for him. You probably shouldn't wake him up. If he's sick, that's how he's going to get well. Let's just leave him alone. And then Jesus tells them, Lazarus is dead. Now this is confusing because remember, 3 days ago, he told them that this sickness will not end in death. So they're looking at him shocked and he says, hey, I'm glad I wasn't there so that you may believe. So let's go down to him. And then we have a line by a man named Thomas. If you haven't been with us through the series, you don't know how much I like Thomas. Thomas is one of my favorite disciples. He's called Doubting Thomas, but that's not right. Thomas is awesome because Thomas says what everybody else is thinking. He's my kind of guy. Doesn't worry about his mouth. He just lets it out. Can you understand why I like him? Anyway, he looks at him and says to the other disciples, let us also go that we may die with him. Here we go. Lazarus is dead. Nothing we can do about that. They're going to kill Jesus. So we might as well go down there and die with him. And so they head down the road. Sorry. So as they head down the road, something happens. We have Martha and Mary in the room. And Martha looks out and sees Jesus coming. And she breaks the rules. And Martha and Mary, they're a sister group, and one of them breaks the rules and one of them doesn't. But it's usually Martha that follows the rules, and Mary doesn't. It's like every sister group I know. One of you is a rule follower, one of you isn't. You all know who you are. Well, we need to understand Martha is so upset. Martha is so disappointed. Martha is so shocked And her faith has been shaken because she believed in Jesus. She knew without a doubt that if Jesus was going to show up, if he was there, my brother would have lived. And so she runs to him and she says, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. She just speaks the truth to him. And then she says, she gets her bearings and she's like, but I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask. Understand this. She has had this horrible pain in her life. She knew without a doubt if God showed up, he could fix this problem. She expected him to show up. She had no doubt he would show up. They loved her. He loved her. She loved him. She had faith. She believed. She called out on God, and God didn't show up. Not only didn't show up, he didn't show up for 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. When he finally shows up, she is so frustrated, so hurt, so disappointed. She is broken, and she runs to him because something in her past is causing her not to be able to trust God in the present. How many of us are there? How many of us have had something in our past that causes us not to trust God in our present? I think we've all been there. I think there's been a time in all of our life. Maybe you were a child and your parents were fighting and you prayed with all of your heart and you believed that God could heal this and you prayed for them not to divorce and they did. Maybe you're sitting by a loved one who had cancer and you prayed and you believed with all of your heart and you knew for a fact that God could heal them, but you watched them die. Maybe in your marriage you truly prayed that your marriage would work. And you had no doubt that Jesus could heal your marriage, but he didn't show up. Or maybe many of you, you don't even look out the window. You don't expect God to show up because you've made such horrendous mistakes. You've made such poor choices. You have so much shame and so much guilt that you don't even ask God to show up because you know he would never show up for a person like you. You've outsinned him. There's no way. Now, God may show up for all these good people around me, but he's not going to show up for me. So for everyone in the room, there's something in our past that keeps us from trusting God in our present. But like Martha, many of you hold on to platitudes, just like she did. She's like, she remembers and she says, yeah, but I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask. That should be on a bumper sticker. That's a Facebook post. God will never give you more than you can handle. You want to see a bunch of platitudes from Christians who have a weak faith? Look on Facebook this afternoon. Just read through them. They all sound great, but they don't have any impact because you see, we're broken, we're disappointed. God didn't show up. We really don't trust him, but we want to hang on to our faith, and so we say things that really aren't important. Just platitudes. Jesus looks at her and says, your brother will rise again. And Martha answers, I know he'll rise in the resurrection at the last day. Yeah, God, I know way in the future this is going to be taken care of. I know way in the future this will happen. Man, how many of you have been at a funeral of a loved one and people think they're comforting you by saying one day you'll see him in heaven? That didn't comfort me. I wanted to send them to see their relatives now. I've heard the worst things at funerals I've ever heard in my life. I heard a lady one time tell a mother who had lost a child that God wanted a flower in his garden, and so he took your child. Man, I wanted to smack her. Do you really think our God is that? What kind of God do you have? That for his personal pleasure, he's going to put you that pain? That's not Jesus. This is the same passage that Jesus wept in because he saw the pain. He saw what they went through. He understood the hurt in the past for them. He understood that they didn't trust him anymore because he had to let them go through that pain so he could teach them something in the present. The same Jesus is in your life. And when your parents divorced and when your loved one died and when your marriage failed, he cried with you, he wept with you, and he was sorry that you had to go through that in the past, but today he wants to show you something. And so he looks at Martha. He looks at Martha. If you've tuned me out, I want you to tune in because this is where it gets important. So come in to me, lean in because I want you to hear what he says. This woman who her past has made her not trust God. She's not interested in the future. She's interested in the pain right now. Jesus looks at her and says, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live even though he dies. And whoever lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? He looks at her, and this is why he's not a good teacher. This is why he's not a spiritual person. Because he doesn't call her aside and say, Martha, you just got to trust God. One day he's going to make all this make sense. One day he's going to work out the details. One day he doesn't say that. He presents himself as the solution. He looks at her and says, I am the resurrection. I am life. If you believe these words, you will not die. Do you believe? It's powerful. Jesus is not concerned about your past. He's not concerned about your future. He's concerned about today. Do you believe? Do you believe? Jesus is deeply moved. He comes to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance. He says, take away the stone. Martha says, but Lord, by this time there's a bad odor, for he has been there 4 days. Jesus took 4 days because he didn't want anybody to spread a rumor that Lazarus didn't die, that he was just sick. He wanted everybody to know that Lazarus was dead. I love the King James. It says, he stinketh. I mean, there is no doubt this man is gone. He is dead. He is decaying. He stinketh. So they take away the stone. And Jesus looks up and says, Father, I thank you that you've heard me. I know you always hear me, but I said this for the benefit of those standing around. I want you to know that we are one. I want them to believe that you sent me. Then he says in a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. The dead man walks out. He says, take off the grave clothes. I want you to understand that we have a Savior right now, today, at this moment, that wants to be your resurrection and life. He wants to untangle your past. He wants to get rid of your past. He wants to show you your past. He wants to forgive you for your past. And listen to me quickly. If you're one of the ones out here that thinks you've out-sinned Jesus, if that is true, Jesus is still in the grave. You can't out-sin him. He conquered death and sin. If your sin was so horrible, Jesus couldn't conquer it, he'd still be dead. You can't out-sin him. You can't outrun him. You can just ignore him. So the question is, do you believe? Not in the future, not in the past, right now. Do you believe he's who he says he is? Now, he's going to give us a future. In 1 Corinthians 15, he lines out our future is going to be an incredible place where there's no separation, there's no death, there's no fear. I'll sleep without snoring. But he says, today I'm the life. I'm not worried about the, pie by and by, sweet pie by. I'm not worried about the by and by. I'm worried about today. I'm not worried about your past. I'm worried about today. Today, I want to be your resurrection and life. Now, I want to go back for a minute to my boy Thomas, because Thomas is incredible. We're not celebrating today the resurrection of Lazarus, because he died again. We're celebrating the resurrection of Jesus. Because for us, Jesus defeated death, defeated sin, defeated hell, defeated the grave, came back, and he lives now. He's alive today. How do we know that he's alive today? How do we know that he's alive today? Now, Thomas, one of the first witnesses. See, the women had told him he was alive, but the disciples didn't believe it. So Jesus appeared to the disciples. But apparently Thomas was out getting hamburgers or something. So he wasn't there. So he came back into the room, and the disciples excitedly said, "We've seen Jesus. The women were right. He's alive. We just saw him. We touched him. We ate with him. He's alive." And Thomas responded like many of you today. Shh, come on. And Thomas put together a checklist. He said, "I'd have to feel the nails in his hand. I'd have to touch his side before I believed." 8 days, Thomas goes through this. And on that 8th day, they're in a locked room. And Jesus appears in the middle of them and says, peace be with you. He had to say peace be with you because that has scared me bad. But after he says peace be with you, he looks right at Thomas. He holds out his hands. He says, touch my hands. Pulls back and says, touch my side. And Thomas does something incredible. He falls on his knees and he cries out, my Lord and my God. At that point, Jesus looks at him and says, you believe because you've seen and touched. Then he talks about us. He said, blessed are those who will not see, won't be able to touch the scars, but still believe. So how do we believe today that Jesus is alive? We look around us. I see people going to the baptismal pool, and they've told me their stories of shame, their stories of addiction, their stories of depravity. And let me tell you, they come out not that person any longer. They come out a trophy of grace. They come out changed, and God begins to transform them in a way that we can't understand or explain. But I see people constantly changing their life because Jesus is alive. Listen, there's nobody around you in this room that's better than you. If you're here today and you think that you're one of those horrible sinners and all these people around you are good, they're not good. We're not good. We just found grace. We found healing, we found forgiveness, and now God is transforming us. Can't imagine what my life would have been like if Jesus hadn't started working in my life. I can't imagine where I'd be. I can't imagine what I'd be doing. I can't imagine my family because Jesus started a transformation, and I'm not where I need to be, but I'm a lot better than I was. And I'm a lot better than I would have been without him, I can promise you that. So look around and see these trophies of grace around you and understand that you can start that process. You can start it. A lot of you, you're not going to look a lot different because you're a good person. But when Jesus enters, you're going to be a better father. You're going to be a better mother. You're going to be a better spouse. You're going to be a better worker. You're going to be better in every area of your life because he's alive. And when he comes in, he begins to transform us. He begins to change us. And that's why millions of people are gathering 2,000 years later, because Jesus Christ is alive. Do you believe? I am the resurrection and the life. Do you believe in me? You will never die. Do you believe? I know many of you have a checklist, and I understand that. This church was built for you to come and ask the questions. And all we're going to do is we're going to try to live it out in front of you as authentically as we can. We're going to continue to point you to the present today. We're not worried about your past. We're not worried about your future. Today, do you believe? I want you to listen to this next song. If you're in the overflow, don't leave. I'm going to come out after, and I'm going to give a challenge, but I want you to listen to this song. And I want you to hear what believing today will do. Would you stand?
Hold me now in the hands that created the heavens. Find me now where the grace runs as deep as your scars. You pull me from the clay. You set me on a rock. You call me by your name. Made my heart whole again. Lifted up, and my knees know it's all for your glory. That I might stand with more reasons to sing than to fear. You pull me from the clay. You set me on a rock. You call me by your name. You made
Death has no hold on, 'cause your grace holds that ground, and your grace holds me now.
Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me should never die. Do you believe this? Today, we're not concerned about your past. We're not concerned about the sweet by and by. We're concerned about today, in this present moment. You can be healed and forgiven. You can begin a transformation because Jesus is alive. If something we've said today has sparked your heart or you want to continue the conversation, we have a community room set up over here on the side, a care room for you. There are people there that will pray with you no matter what you're going through. They will discuss with you, they'll talk with you. They may not have all the answers, and that's fine. We've built this place for you. You can come back week after week after week, and we'll continue presenting Jesus to you. If you're in the overflow here, just go to the hub, and they'll direct you. In Ennis, go to the hub. Online, we encourage you to call the office this week or find a local church that you can ask these questions to and find out, who is this Jesus and why do so many people worship him 2,000 years after this incredible event? Thank you for sharing Easter with us. We hope you have an incredible week. Thank you so much for being with us. Have a safe and happy day.
If you have any questions or need prayer, send us a message at info@theavenuechurch.com. We are always here for you. Looking for ways to give from where you are? Text the amount to 84321. And don't forget to subscribe and follow us on social media to stay in the loop. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you next week.